Monty, you have been so instrumental in kind of pointing me in the right direction.
It was about looking at your character defects in spirituality.
It's the integration of clinical practices with the 12 steps.
It's an absolute pleasure. He certainly knows a lot of people. He's got a lot of energy, and sometimes when you don't have so much energy, he picks you up and carries you.
Having the Monty Man there certainly helps.
This is one of the places that is about the business of the solution.
The views expressed on this special broadcast of the Take 12 radio show do not necessarily reflect those of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting or its affiliates. KHLT is not affiliated with any particular 12-step fellowship.
Now here's that guy who's getting less popular minute by minute. Your host, the Multi-Man.
Well, welcome aboard, all you scallywags and scallywaggles out there, to the Good Ship Recovery for another episode of Take12Radio.com. Recovery talk and positive music here at KHLT Recovery Broadcasting Studios, broadcasting from the outskirts of beautiful downtown Albany, Oregon. How the heck are you today? I am so glad you joined us, as always. And I want to remind you, of course, of our recovery cartoon caption contest in full swing. And all you got to do is go to Take12Radio.com, click on Recovery Cartoons, and there you will find a cartoon that has no caption. That's where you come in. And you can click on the Read the Rules link there. It'll tell you how to enter. And you could win a monthly prize sponsored by Mark L., recovery comedian, with his live DVD, Addiction, a comedy of substance. And also we're giving you a bonus CD from Mark called How Is That Funny? And then you're entered into the grand prize in December of $1,000 worth of recovery goodies, all sorts of good stuff, T-shirts and books and CDs and DVDs. So you don't want to miss out on that. And remember, my friends, check out every show we have here at Take 12 Radio. We are still the only recovery radio station broadcasting a different recovery-focused show every single day of the week and broadcasting to you positive and recovery music 24 hours a day, 7 days a week. Well, hey, listen. You know, we've all gone through stuff, right? We some of us more horrific than others, but it is always painful to walk through life when there's a monkey on your back. And many of you out there have been through the ringer. Many of you have been on the show. You've shared your experience, strength, and hope. But you've also shared, the solution. And my guest today is somebody that has definitely been through the ringer. Donna Buchanan is my guest. She is an author and someone who has really been to hell and back. And she's going to be sharing her story of experience, strength, and hope. Let me tell you just a little bit about Donna. Donna Buchanan started running at the age of 14. Soon the streets became her life, and she was consumed with drug addiction, which ultimately led to her conviction of second-degree murder. She says, once there, I was determined to right my wrongs and take responsibility for my actions. I started training greyhound dogs who were also getting a second chance at life. Together, we began to change lives of those who were around us. Donna's goal is to educate the youths against drugs and violence. And she's going to share more in depth about all this and talk about her book, Second Chance Runaway, the Donna Buchanan story. Donna, welcome to Take 12 Radio.
Thank you, Monty. Thank you for having me.
It's good to meet you, and you have a upbeat about your tone and your voice, which so many times when somebody's gone through what you've gone through, that just doesn't come through, but it does with you. Before we get into your story, why are you so alive about life after all you went through?
Well, after all I went through, the main thing was, God gave me a second chance at life. This is my passion, to share my story and share it with other people so they don't end up having to go through what I went through. I'm very passionate about what I do.
Yeah.
So that's what gives me life now. You know, God healed me while I was inside. I became the person that I used to be, you know, before all this happened.
Sure.
So, yes, there's a light back in my eyes again. You know, there's a strength. I got my strength back. So I want to share that strength with everyone else.
You bet.
You know, and definitely, and let them know, you know, they're not alone. These things happen to not everybody, but so many people, and a lot of people feel like they're alone, and it just doesn't happen to them. It does happen.
Mm-hmm.
In every walk of life. It don't matter if you're middle class, you know, upper class, lower class, it happens. And, you know, and it can happen to you. So I want to share that with everybody.
Well, it's a beautiful thing that you're doing. Now, you were convicted of second-degree murder. What's that like? What's that like, having that hanging over your head in when this whole thing started, when you started going through the process of the court system and the conviction and going to jail? What did you feel like?
Oh my goodness, you know, that's hard to describe. This thing, it was confusion. I was scared, disbelief. And how did my life get to that point? Shock. I was in shock. I mean, for several months, I wouldn't even speak to anybody. The nurses, I was in the infirmary because, you know, after it happened, I was so traumatized. So I wouldn't eat, I wouldn't, drink, nothing. The only one that I would even speak to was my attorney, and then, you know, I didn't hardly speak then. So, you know, it was very traumatic for me. And going through the court system and the process, I just remembered, you know, just falling apart. Couldn't understand how, you know, I could have took somebody's life. That was very hard for me to understand. And you got to understand, too, I was physically and emotionally beaten up by that relationship. I was with my boyfriend for 7 years. So, you know, through all that abuse, you know, for that relationship, and not only that relationship, but prior to that, with my life on the street.
Now, you, in self-defense, you literally stabbed your boyfriend 54 times. Is that true?
That's correct. Yes, that's correct. 54 times I stabbed him.
What was going on, Donna? What happened? What led up to this?
Well, like I said, I was with him for 7 years. The abuse had been pretty bad, mental abuse and physical abuse. And it just kept escalating. And those last few days, he'd been fighting with me for 2 days. I wasn't sleeping. Every time I tried to go to sleep, he'd wake me up yelling at me or slap me around. So I wasn't getting any sleep. And it was just all that abuse from him and from prior just came out that night when he tried to kill me. It just all came out and I snapped.
Yeah.
You know, I just totally lost it. And it was in, you know, such a high state of fear. You know, in my state of mind at that time, my fear was, you know, if I didn't kill him, he was going to kill me.
Sure. It
took me. Go ahead.
No, I was going to say, what was it because of the amount of stabbings that led to the conviction?
Not necessarily. I took a plea. We never did take it to trial.
Okay.
I ended up taking a plea for it. I was offered a plea of 15 years, and I ended up taking the plea. Now, we had a defense using battered woman syndrome, you know, self-defense of what happened.
Yeah.
But like I said, I was mentally not in a good place at the time. So I wanted to also take responsibility for what I did. So I ended up accepting the plea instead of taking it to trial.
And how long were you in prison?
I was in prison 13 years.
13 years? Wow.
Yes. Long time. Yes.
Man, I can't even imagine. My experience, personal experience with prison was 6 months, and you know, and I thought I was going through hell. I mean, that didn't even scratch the surface.
Yeah, it's a long time. It's really a long time.
What an experience! I just can't. I can't. My head can't. I have a hard time wrapping my mind around it because I feel for you so much. I don't care what somebody's done. The truth of the matter is, when you go to prison, it's traumatic. I mean, that whole thing. I mean, share with the listeners, how did you settle in, or did you ever settle in?
Oh, well, in the beginning, it was very hard to settle in, especially probably the first 5 years. It was very difficult. But, after a while when I was in there, I said, okay, I'm in prison. Now I got to start rebuilding myself. I got to start working on me to find out who I used to be. And so I started by doing that was by educating myself.
Mm-hmm.
So I started educating myself. Then I started educating others and working with the other young girls in there. Because I used to see so many young girls come in there that really did not need to be in there. So I started working with them, and that's when I discovered, I had a link with the young girls. They felt comfortable talking to me. And so they would openly, talk to me about their past and everything. And so I started encouraging them to take vocational classes, get their GED. I would work with them and tutor them. And I started, saying, this is what I need to be doing. I need to be helping other people so they don't end up like I did, and go down the same path, because they still are young. They have a chance to get out and turn their life around. So I started doing that. And like I said, I continued to educate myself on not only, learning things, but also educating myself on what happened and why it happened, and trying to avoid that ever happening to me again, not only with drug abuse, but relationships and domestic violence.
Well,
so, that's just, go ahead.
No, I was going to say, how old were you when you were convicted?
I was 37 years old. So I was probably about, that's when I was arrested, but I was about 39 when I took the plea, because I was in the county for a little over 2 years.
And what was the response of family and friends to all of this?
I guess, shocked that I could have taken a life. That was, I think, the biggest thing, because they couldn't believe that, I did that, because I've always been definitely not a violent person. I always took the abuse. I wasn't one to ever fight back, in the relationship, so I always just took it. So it was definitely a shock on that. A lot of pain, it caused my mom a lot of pain. She felt even, a lot of guilt,
mm-hmm.
For, how my life had turned out, when I started running away. So there was a lot of pain and guilt there. So with both.
Well, Donna,
and
I was going to ask you. You started running at age 14. What were you running from?
Okay, when around age 14, I was raped by my brother-in-law.
Oh God!
And so after I was raped, he dropped me off in the city of Richmond, which is about 60 miles, west of where I lived.
Yeah.
And so he dropped me off in the street, and I was so traumatized after what happened that I felt I couldn't go back home. The shame, the guilt, nobody else would ever want me again. I was ruined. So my answer was to run. So I started running away, running from it.
Wow. And narcotics and alcohol became a staple for you, true?
Oh, yes. Life on the streets, that's just, that's part of it. Drugs, alcohol.
You bet.
So that became commonplace for me to even, see it, use it. It was everywhere.
Well, why the title Second Chance Runaway? Can you share that with us?
Oh, definitely. There was 3 reasons why I named it Second Chance Runaway. The first reason was God gave me a second chance at life. So that was the number one reason. The second reason was the Second Chance at Life Greyhound program in prison, where I worked with training the Greyhound dogs for service and for pets. They will also be given a second chance at life, and together we both healed each other. So both of us were given second chances. So, and then the third reason, Runaway, was I started my life out by running away. So I put it all together, and it was Second Chance Runaway. it just seemed fitting.
Yeah, it does. Now, people can order this book on Amazon, right?
I guess, and Lulu.com. You can go to my Facebook page, Donna Buchanan. There's a link you can click on there. You can also go to my website, Second Chance Runaway, or to my manager's site, which is The Streets Don't Love You Back. And that's with Robin Lucinda Boyd.
And we're going to talk about them here after the break. So folks, Second Chance Runaway is the website. You can get the book through there or through Amazon or Lulu.com. Let's take a break, and when we come back, let's talk about these folks that came alongside you and got a hold of you and how they've helped you to put this stuff all together, because I'm sure that's very interesting. Folks, don't go away. More with my guest, Donna Buchanan, author of Second Chance Runaway, the Donna Buchanan story, when we return.
As men and women who have recovered from utterly hopeless states of addiction ourselves, we know all too well what it's like to battle addiction daily. We are Origins Recovery Centers. Here at Origins, we have taken that which we have learned along the way, excised anything unhelpful and unnecessary, infused it with the latest medical research and innovative therapeutic methods, and created what we know to be the absolute gold standard in substance abuse treatment. And Origins provides the most preeminent aftercare and relapse prevention program available in the United States. For a free confidential clinical assessment, call toll-free 888-843-8935. That's 888-843-8935. Origins, delivering real solutions for real families.
All right, and many thanks to the folks at Origins, Ben Levinson of Dr. Phil, and all the folks at Origins. What a wonderful center that is. Our guest today is Donna Buchanan, and we're talking about her experience, strength, and hope, and her book, Second Chance Runaway. It is something to go through hell and back and fall back into the same old stuff. Some people do. That's just what happens. Other times, there is a complete change in a person's life, a second chance. Donna, you've mentioned God several times. We're a faith-based radio station, so we talk very openly about God. Was there something that happened between you and God specifically that you can pinpoint that changed you?
Well, there's always been a relationship with my faith with God. I've always had faith in God. When I was inside, I think mostly when I started working with the Greyhounds, that's when it just really became connected. And I knew this is what God's plan was for me. I always firmly believe God had a plan for me always. And that's why he spared me, because he had a plan for me. So when I started working with them, I started believing in myself. My confidence came back. And then the more I did that, the more my faith came back. And so the more I saw God's plan for me was to share my story, to start working with the youth, about educating them, against drugs and violence.
Yeah.
So there's definitely, a belief there.
Well, and really, that is the solution, true?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah. We talk a lot about, in recovery circles, we talk a lot about spirituality and higher power and all that kind of stuff, but we tend to skirt around the real solution, and that's a relationship with our Creator. And we talk a real good talk, but sometimes what we perceive as the mess that we're going through is the very thing that strengthens our relationship with God. And I've known that to be true in my life, and it sounds like it certainly has been in yours. When you were writing this book, I mean, what compelled you to write a book? I mean, that's a lot of work, right?
Oh, yes, definitely. It is a lot of work. It is. What compelled me, like I said, is, what I started doing inside, the change inside of me, And then when I was contacted while I was in prison by Robin and Lucinda Boyd, and they were with the Streets Don't Love You Back movement. So they saw me on WeTV. I did a show called Women Behind Bars. So they contacted me, and after I was looking over, everything they sent me, and Rob's written 2 books, Never Hit a Woman, and his life story, The Streets Don't Love You Back. After I saw that, I started thinking, this is a way for me to tell my story. And so when I got out on July 4th, 2013, Robin and Lucinda Boyd, they contacted me my first day out, and they encouraged me to write a book and to tell my story. I had already been considering it while I was in prison, reaching out that way, but they really inspired me to tell my story.
And they sound like they've come alongside you and really been a source of encouragement for you, right? I mean, yeah. What a wonderful thing for God to put these fine folks into your life. Is there something in the book specifically that for you really stands out more than anything else?
Yes, there's a lot that stands out to me.
Yeah.
Choices. We all have choices in life, and the paths we take and the consequences. That stood out to me a lot because, I guess along my journey there could have been different choices I could have made where my life could have turned out differently. But ultimately you have to deal with what choices you did make and the consequences that comes with it. And what really got to me, too, is I believe it's not the past. It's not so much what you did in the past. It's what you didn't do in the future, what you do with your life from here on out. So that really stood out to me a lot while I was working on it. Mm-hmm. And, working on the book also helped heal me, too. Because, of course, I had to relive everything and go back through everything.
Oh, my gosh.
But it also empowered me, too. It empowered me as a woman, to continue doing more with my life. And that was just the beginning. Writing that book was just the beginning.
I'm really interested in this work you did with greyhounds. There's something very therapeutic about working with animals, right?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. I mean, they use them in hospitals, VA hospitals, therapy. I mean, they're very healing.
So why greyhound dogs?
Well, that was they had a couple of programs in prison. One was the CCI dogs, Canine Companions for Independence, and then they also had the Second Chance at Life Greyhound programs. So I tried out for the Greyhound program. I'd never seen a Greyhound before in my life, but when I heard about the Greyhound, the racing in the background, and how they were mistreated, everything it was something I really wanted to do with these rescued Greyhounds. And it totally changed my life working with them. Because here they were, these dogs come in broken, just like I came into prison broken.
Yeah.
But, together, we healed each other, working with them.
You know that, have you seen that commercial on TV for the SPCA where they show the dogs and cats that are homeless and
oh, yeah, the ones that break your heart.
Oh, my gosh. Donna, I can't watch that commercial. It just tears.
It's very hard.
It tears me up.
Yes.
We have a dog. Her name is Nala. She's half Border Collie, half Australian Shepherd, and we rescued her from a shelter, and we really believe in that. And boy, I'll tell you something. They know it. They know it when you rescue them, don't they?
Oh, they do. They never forget. They never forget. I mean, the Greyhounds that used to come in, when they would come in straight from the track, oh, my goodness, the shape they were in. Some came in with broken legs, cuts all over them. I mean, some came in such terrible shape it would just break your heart. You think those commercials break your heart? Seeing these Greyhounds when they first came in and just how broken they were, just scared and, shivering out of fear, It would just break your heart. But it was also, when you saw them come in like that, about a couple months down the road, to see the complete change in them, where they're happy, running around, playing, playing with toys. It was so rewarding. It was one of the most rewarding things I did.
Man, that just I just commend you for that. What a wonderful work. Do you keep in contact with these folks that you've worked with before with the dogs?
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, most definitely. Beverly and Bird, yeah. We stay in contact. Definitely.
Yeah, that's wonderful. Let me ask you this: when you're working with young people, when you're talking with them, is there resistance, or are these the people you're talking with and sharing with? Are they ready to hear what you have to say?
No, I don't feel like there's much resistance.
Mm-hmm.
I found they're very curious about my life.
Yeah.
They have a lot of questions that they want to ask, so they're very curious about it. And I think a lot of it, too, like I said, is a lot of young women and children today feel like the things that happen to them, it's just happening to them, that it doesn't happen to other people. So when they hear about my life and the things I've done and been through, it definitely makes them curious. They want to ask more. They want to, hear more. They want to understand. And then when they see, too, that it doesn't just happen, to them, then they want to share it. Then I notice they start opening up. Because there's nothing, no young woman can tell me that I haven't seen or I haven't done.
Right.
Or been through myself. So then they feel, that they can open up. And they want to. They want to open up. They want somebody to share with. Because sometimes it's difficult to share those things with a family member, and sometimes it's easier to share with somebody you don't know.
Yeah, you bet. I get that. I've had my experiences with speaking with high school kids, and it's amazing to me. Once you get their attention, they hang on every word.
Yes.
Yeah, and what a great work you're doing. Well, we're going to take our second break and come back, and I want to talk to you about how are people responding to your book? So, including relatives and maybe even people that were associated with your boyfriend. So, don't go away, folks. More with Donna Buchanan when we come back.
Men, women, and their families experience tremendous pain and suffering due to the struggles they face from substance abuse and its co-occurring mental health challenges. They need to find a safe place for peace and healing. Therapia Addiction Healing Center was born out of a deep desire to provide that safe and powerful healing environment. Therapia exists to help people recover from addictions by developing and maintaining healthy, meaningful relationships with God, self, and others. To speak with an addiction specialist, call 1-855-652-4325. That's 1-855-652-4325. Or visit our website at www.therapia.net. Therapia Addiction Healing Center, restoring lives one step at a time.
All right, welcome back. And Donna Buchanan is my guest this week, and we're talking about her story and her book, Second Chance Runaway, the Donna Buchanan story. And this is something that, please, folks, take a look at the website. You can go to thestreetsdon'tlovemeback.com. You can go to Second Chance Runaway. Is it secondchancerunaway.com, Donna?
Yes, it is.
Okay. In order the book, you can go on Amazon and type in Donna Buchanan and get a copy of her book. Now, Donna, what has been the reception of and the attitude of people that you know personally with this book? Particularly, has there been any communication with the family members of your ex-boyfriend?
There has not been any communication with his family members. I know he was estranged from his family, so he didn't have any relationships with any of his family.
Right.
At the time, so I have not heard from his family since I got out, or even like I said, before I even went in, there was no relationship. I think I met his brother once, and it was very brief, you know. And
Right.
his daughter, I hadn't heard from her either. You know, like I said, there wasn't a good relationship between the two.
Very interesting. So what's been the response to your book? You know, have you gotten letters and emails and phone calls? What are people saying?
You know, people have really inspired me. After reading the book, I've had some people. Then I was at the work release center, the correction officers. They really made me feel good about my book. I've gotten a really good response. You know, from friends that I grew up with. A lot of them, you know, were surprised by my story, too.
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of them said, oh, my God, Donna, I didn't know all that happened to you.
Yeah.
You know, I just found out. So there's been an excellent response. And like I said, it's definitely empowered me, you know, and I was anxious to hear when everybody, you know, what the response would be from them. You know, but the responses I'm getting just tells me I'm doing the right thing by sharing my story and getting it out there. So it inspires me to continue.
July 4th, 2013 is when you were released. What did that feel?
That's right.
What did that feel like walking out of the facility and back into the world of us, the rest of us?
Overwhelming.
Yeah.
Definitely, it was very overwhelming. I remember I got out and I wanted to call my mom.
Mm-hmm.
So I used somebody's cell phone, and I got the cell phone. I'm like, okay, how do you work this?
Right.
I didn't even know how to use a cell phone. Everything's changed so much. Technology.
Was there
so overwhelming.
Was there culture shock?
Oh, definitely.
Yeah.
Definitely. It was very hard to explain. It was just like just being out with all that activity, just regular, normal day life, you know, after being locked in and, you know, not having all that stimulation. It was just so much stimulation for me.
Yeah,
So
yeah,
it was difficult.
that's the word that I hear from people. That word stimulation. Okay, July 4th, 2013, you were released. That isn't all that long ago. Are you still kind of dealing with being out in the real world?
It's starting to feel normal to me now. I mean, sometimes still it's a little surreal, you know, that I'm out. But I'm definitely more comfortable, and I'm learning the technology. I love it. The internet is a wonderful thing, you know.
Yeah.
Just so much information. Anything you want to know, you just go on, you know, Google it. It's just so much information. And so it's like I hardly ever want to sleep because I want to learn everything, and I feel like I'm going to miss something if I go to sleep.
Right. Yeah, because you made a real quantum leap. I mean, you were sheltered from a lot of that stuff. And then you're released and just plunged right into a world of technology that is, you know, most of us have had a little time to kind of warm up to. You didn't have any of that.
No, just listen to it straight into it. But I loved it. And like I said, Robin and the board, you know, they've been wonderful, you know, inspiring me, you know, even helping me with the, you know, little things like on the computer that I didn't understand. So they've definitely been educating me in that area.
Well,
they've been very helpful.
And I want to personally thank Robert and Lucinda Boyd for coming alongside you and helping you. You know, a lot of times people get out of prison, especially after a long stint like that, and nobody's there. I mean, they just kind of get dumped out on the street, and what do you do? How do you function? And to have Robert and Lucinda do this with you, I just, you know, I don't know them personally, and I've just met you, but my heart goes out to say thank you, because we need folks like that to come alongside of folks that are getting out of prison, especially when there's so much stigma attached to people that are newly released. Did you get any negative kickback from society when you got out?
No, so far I haven't.
Yeah, that's good.
And I think that also comes back from, it's what you do now.
Yeah.
You know, yes, that's going to come up about my past and, you know, what I did then and what happened. But they also see what I'm doing now. and, how passionate I am about, what I'm doing, with educating and everything. So I haven't really received any negative feedback, not that I know of or I'm aware of.
Yeah, well, that's good. That's great. So what's in the future for Donna Buchanan?
Oh, in the future is to continue educating. I want to go into schools, and I want to go back into the prisons and, start speaking. But my managers were also contacted by Unit 9 Films in London, and they're doing a show. It's kind of like a reality show. It's called Human Act of Kindness, to where they would film you, and you have to pick like somewhere you'd like to go in the United States. And for 3 weeks, they would follow you and film you while you went on this journey. And you would depend on, human acts of kindness, like a ride somewhere, or somebody show you their city, or maybe they'd want to take you up in a hot air balloon. So, we're looking forward to, working with them on this project. And then we were also contacted by the ID channel. They were the ones that did the show Women Behind Bars that I was on.
Okay.
And that was when I was in prison.
Right.
Okay, they contacted managers again, interested in doing another show. It's on Wives with Knives. And on there, I would be telling my story about the work I did with the Greyhounds in prison. And, of course, what I'm doing now, in life after prison.
Sure.
So we're looking forward to working with the both of them on those projects.
It sounds really interesting. The whole idea of going through a city and depending on people's acts of kindness, that's going to be very interesting.
Yes.
One of the things I know that can happen with folks in dealing with people that I've sponsored in my recovery circles is that sometimes people that have been in prison can get kind of bitter. And, I know it's a very painful experience. Would you attribute the fact, because you don't sound bitter at all. I mean, was that something, did God protect you from becoming bitter? Was that a spiritual thing?
Oh, well, yeah, I think it was a spiritual thing, too. But when I first came into prison, and what I saw, especially with women that had a lot of time, was how bitter they were.
Yeah.
And angry. And when I came in, I remember telling myself, and even I told a girl that I knew in there, I said, I'm not going to let all this time change me and make me bitter like that. I'm going to make sure that I come out a better person, a more positive person than when I came in. I'm not going to let this time make me bitter, or my heart. I'm not going to let it destroy my heart.
Good for you. I'm so proud of you.
I made that vow from the very beginning of when I first went to prison.
I just, again, it's so hard for me to wrap my mind around that many years in prison. I mean, I remember being sent to my room when I was a kid and had to sit there for an hour and thinking that it was the end of the world. To go through what you went through and to stay focused and have a great relationship with God and with these great friends, Robert and Lucinda Boyd, and to write this book and to share your experience, your strength, and your hope with other people. I just commend you on this, Donna. What a wonderful gift you've given to people, even through your pain. I just want to thank you so much.
Oh, thank you, Monty. That means a lot to me.
Absolutely.
But like I said, I've been healing too by sharing my pain. This has helped heal me.
What would you tell
by going through this?
And maybe expound on that just a little bit. There are people listening right now that are hurting, that have gone through a lot of horrible experiences. We have a lot of listeners that are in the mess, so to speak. What kind of encouraging words would you give them?
Well, if you're in a domestic violence relationship or drugs and violence, whatever it is, you have to get out, because you're only going down a dead-end road. It's either going to lead to, death or prison, death institution, that's where it's going to lead. It's not going to end good. It's going to end badly. And life is too good to spend sitting in prison like I did for 13 years. That's not living.
Yeah.
Life can be really good. So, you have to, make a choice, And now sometimes it seems hopeless out there, because trust me, I was out there. It felt very hopeless to me. But there are organizations out there and people that, will help you, to help you change the way your life is, to get you started. I mean, even like I said, the streets don't love you back, become part of the movement. They'll help you. There's so many, there's runaway hotlines, domestic violence hotlines, drug abuse hotlines. There's so many avenues out there, a lot that wasn't out there when I first started running away.
Yeah.
It's out there now, it's resources.
Domestic violence is really huge, and it happens to women, but it also happens to men, doesn't it?
Oh, yeah, definitely.
Yeah.
It happens to men, too. We can't leave that out, because that's very important. It not only happens to women, but men also. So both need to be educated, the men and the women. I did a show with out of Las Vegas not too long ago with Talk to Koji, and that was his focus, too, It's not just the women that are getting abused, it's the men, too. But also by educating both men and women, we got to stop this violence, because, what happened to me is one day I took the abuse until I couldn't take it no more, and I fought back.
Yeah.
I ended up taking a life. So, that can happen both ways. Same thing with a man can end up taking the abuse and end up fighting back, and vice versa.
Right.
So we have to, stand up, have a voice, and to educate, everybody about domestic violence.
I love the slogan that Dr. Phil McGraw says, "Stop the silence on domestic violence." You got to speak up.
That's right.
Yeah.
You do.
Got to speak
up. You have to speak up.
Well, Donna, before we close, is there anything specifically you would like to tell the listeners right now?
Yes. I have one thing. Never give up. Don't ever give up on your hopes, your dreams. It can't happen. I mean, look at my life, the life I've had. Now I'm living out my dream. There's so much hope in my future. One thing is I never gave up. I always kept trying, and so I want to encourage everybody, don't ever give up on your hopes and dreams, because they still can come true. It can happen. So keep that hope, keep that light in your faith, and reach to your higher power, whoever your higher power is.
Yeah, good word. Good word. Well, thank you, Donna, so much for taking the time to come on Take 12 Radio and share with our listeners your experience, strength, and hope. Yeah, what a story. I mean, my gosh. And again, I commend you for stepping up and doing the next right thing and hanging in there. And now the world's your oyster. I mean, you've got all these opportunities coming up. What a blessing, right?
That is a blessing. I thank you so much for having me on here.
Absolutely, Donna. So, Donna, stay on the line. Don't hang up, folks.
Okay.
The website that you can visit to get Donna's book is one of the websites is thestreetsdon'tloveyouback.com. You can get it there. secondchancerunaway.com. You can get it there. You can get it out on Amazon. You can follow the links here at Take12Radio.com to pick up her book. Please pick it up. I know this, after 9 years of interviewing authors and folks of the like, nobody's getting rich off this book. This is a act of passion to share with you Donna's experience, so you can have hope. So maybe there's some things in that book that you can identify with, so you don't have to go through what Donna went through. So I just encourage you to order that book. And remember, my friends, do something now that will make the person you will be tomorrow proud to have been the person you are today. Donna Buchanan has obviously done that and is still giving away just some wonderful stuff to all of us. All right. Don't forget to email us here at take12radio.com. And if you're on your smartphone, our website is take12radio.com on your internet dial. Until our next broadcast, this is the Monty Man, along with Donna Buchanan, and we're wishing God's perfect serenity for you. Bye-bye now.
This has been a broadcast of KHLT Recovery Broadcasting.
Kitty, 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 kitty.